What's going on, man? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Ron, and if you're new here, I go over football, a little bit of basketball. So if you like sports, you like fantasy sports, make sure you go down below and hit the subscribe button. But today, we're doing a little bit of a Dynasty deep dive. I know it's week 13 of the NFL season, so there's not really trade targets to look for in seasonal leagues or your traditional ESPN leagues. But in Dynasty, this is an important part of the year. This is a time where if you're trying to contend, you're selling your soul to win the playoffs,
to win the chip.
And if you're trying to tank for next year, do a little tank for Trevor, tank for Tua action. This is a crucial part because they're going to be looking for the win now pieces on your team. And this is where you want to strike, get those picks for 2021 and get those young players. So today we're going to look at one of my Dynasty teams. I personally have a Dynasty team where I have one where I'm contending and I have one where I'm tanking and I'm looking for that first overall pick. I'm looking for those young players. So I'm going to show you guys what my team looks like, what my thoughts are, and then we'll dive into some Dynasty trade targets as a young team that's building for the future. Trying to put those pieces together, very similar to how the Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia 76ers just have to trust the process. And it's interesting to look at this from a Dynasty perspective. So without further ado, let's hop on Sleeper and let's look at the squad.
We do not care.
Hey, yo, y'all can't stand right here. In his right hand was your man's worst nightmare. Loud enough to burst his right eardrum close range. The game is not only...
All right, welcome to the squad, boy. Mi casa es su casa. This is the squadron on Sleeper. We're tanking right now. We're 4-7. We're on pace for the first overall pick because we do it by max points for. If you don't do it by max points for, it's the move in Sleeper in Dynasty leagues. You basically just do the reverse order of whoever has the most possible points. So nobody's like trying to tank or set bad lineups, but here's the squadron. I'll just highlight some of the nice players on the team. We got Miles Sanders, we got Christian Kirk, Travis Fulgham, Laviska Shenault, Josh Reynolds, Andy Isabella, Gardner Minshew, a super flex, by the way. But here, the young players on this team are really promising. Keyshawn Vaughn, Cam Akers, Joshua Kelly. Then we also got Lamar Jackson, Brandon Ayuk, J.K. Dobbins. We got a first, 2 seconds. How I got that extra second, I packaged up Drew Brees for Jordan Love in a second rounder. Little moves like that are nice to do when you're a rebuilding team. But with this squadron, I'm going to keep anybody who's in their first 1 to 2 years. I'm going to keep a Miles Sanders. I'll keep a Lamar Jackson. 1 to 3 years, I'll say. But guys, I got to move. I got to look to move. Devontae Parker, Rob Gronkowski has to go. Travis Fulgham might be on the way out. But right now it's week 13. The trade deadline in this league is through the playoffs. You can trade whenever. But that's how most Dynasty leagues are. Or some Dynasty leagues, you can trade through week 13. So that's why I'm going to come out with this video. And these are moves that you have to make. I cannot keep Gronkowski and Devontae Parker on my team right now. And that's when I hit up guys. When I look at the league standings, you're going to have to hit up Sean Legs Cooter, Mr. Fister. The guys that are contenders locked into those playoff spots. Those are the guys you have to hit up to try and ship off those old guys for first rounders. Because even though that they're first and second place teams, you get their first rounder, they go into the playoffs and they slip up. Now all of a sudden it goes from what you thought was going to be a 111, 112, and now it's a 109, 110. Even guys that aren't locked into the top 2 seeds, and anything like that, especially the fringe guys. If you go to a guy who is like top, like the 5th seed, the 6th seed, things that they've been done wrong, about to have a sick run in the playoffs, that's when you hit him up, you hit him a little nudge on the side, you give him a Devontae Parker, Rob Gronkowski for a first. All of a sudden, they lose week 13 anyways, and now you get the 106. So there's a lot of different ways that this can go, but I'm telling you, you really don't want to go into the offseason with players like Rob Gronkowski, Devontae Parker, any of those old guys that are past their rookie contracts. You want them off your team immediately because as soon as the season ends, if you're not young and you have this perceived upside, then all of a sudden they have no value. It just completely turns to dust, little Thanos snap. You don't want that to happen on your squad. So that's why you have to get rid of those guys. But now we're in this position where we have guys like Devontae Parker, Rob Gronkowski. Who are we going to target? So now I'm going to jump into my trade targets for a second. Let's hop off the Sleeper. First up, let me just say for the folks in the back, picks over everything. We want first rounders, second rounders over everything. Unless if you're getting like a crazy good player, we want picks over everything. Picks are our currency, and right now is the cheapest time to get them. A team is going to want to stock up for that championship run, and they're going to part with those picks easily. But as soon as week 16 happens, those picks skyrocket. Everybody starts getting into the draft type, and they're not as easily acquirable anymore. So you want to get them right now. This is when their value is the lowest, especially right near the trade deadline. Everybody wants to cash in their pick for a win now asset. In my win now team, my contender team, I don't have any first or seconds through my 2021 or 2022 drafts. I sold my soul. I'm hoping that I get a championship in that league. People are going to be willing to do that in your league. So you just have to find the right person to hit up for those picks and those young players. Now, when we're looking for trade targets on these teams, you want to look for the guys who have contenders, or the guys who are contenders. you want to look for the young players on those teams that aren't going to contribute in the flex spot or in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 spot. And the first guy on this list is going to be T. Higgins, and I cannot say this enough, fellas. It's completely fine to buy high in Dynasty, especially when you're rebuilding and it's for a stud. You don't want to always buy low and sell high in Dynasty. Sometimes you buy high. Imagine you bought high on DK Metcalf in the offseason. You buy high on AJ Brown. There's a lot of these guys that you can buy high on and their value just keeps climbing, like a Chris Godwin. There's players you can buy high on early in their careers when they haven't even hit their peak yet. So they might be on the upslope, but if you can get them here before they even hit that apex, that's where you're getting the value, and that's why you buy high on these players. That's why I'm looking to buy high on T. Higgins, because he's getting overshadowed by guys like Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, but he still has a little bit of hype. But owner's not going to want to part way with him too easily. But with that being said, Joe Burrow, rest in peace. That man's season. I love Joe Burrow, and that's part of the reason why I love T. Higgins. But with him being out, he's no longer usable for his owner. Now, with this Burrow injury, Higgins becomes a buy, because with Burrow out, Higgins isn't really that high-end fringe like wide receiver 2 like he was before the Burrow injury. I know that he just had 5 for 41 and a touchdown, but he's not going to be consistent flex play. And I think that those owners of T. Higgins are starting to see the writing on the wall. This is a guy who's going to be on your bench until 2021. And if they're trying to contend and they're trying to win now, this is a guy that they want to part ways with, a guy they want to cut ties with. And that's why I'm saying you got to go grab him. Even on a down week, he did have 544 and a touchdown, and the quarterback only threw for 136 and a touchdown, but that's not sustainable. He's not going to put up 50 and a touchdown every week. And even if he did, that's like a tight end stat line. You know what I mean? That's not a guy you want. And a contending owner, like I said, is going to want to win now. That's not what he can do with T. Higgins in 2020. Now, when we look at 2021 and why we want T. Higgins, why we're honing in on T. Higgins as a trade target instead of Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb, because you can get him at a lower value, and because his outlook is almost as green, as nice, as pretty as a CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson. He's just not getting that media hype right now. Now, when you look at his rookie season, he's on pace for 980 yards and 7 touchdowns as the wide receiver 21 in points per game so far. Like I said, I expect that to drop off, but as of right now, that's what he's on pace for, 980 and 7 touchdowns. And let's look at other rookie wide receivers from last year. You know, you have AJ Brown and DK Metcalf this year. They're studs. They're balling out of control. AJ Brown, his rookie season, put up 52, 1051, and 8 touchdowns. And then DK Metcalf only put up 58, 900, and 7 touchdowns. T. Higgins arguably is on pace for a better stat line. And on top of that, towards the end of the season, where the rookie receivers start to pick up, these are stats through the first 12 weeks of the season. That's why it's so impressive, and that's why I think that he's going to be great in 2021. These rookie wide receivers, they're not going to come in their first year and be a top 15 wide receiver, top 12 wide receiver, unless if they're built different, similar to how AJ Brown was towards the end of the season, but they'll have spurts. They won't have a full season of insane production. But I think that T. Higgins into 2021, when you look at his production, you compare him to other rookie wide receivers from last year and what they're doing in their second year, that's where I'm thinking that T. Higgins is going to be a top 10, top 15 fringe type wide receiver next year in 2021. And that's why I'm trying to build around him right now and acquire him for as cheap as you can. Before I get into this next trade target, there's not going to be any running backs on this list. Running backs are not assets you want to acquire right now, especially because it's such a broken position right now. A lot of injuries, a lot of guys who are just 10-game plugins that you don't want to go after. You don't want to go after guys like James Robinson if you're rebuilding. You don't want to go after guys like a Kenyon Drake, a Chase Edmonds. There's just a lot of really unstable assets at running back. That's why you want to get a little bit safer. You go for those young wide receivers and you go for picks. Like I said, those are the most valuable 2 things you can have as a rebuilding team in Dynasty. But I will say my next favorite trade target is going to be the high upside tight ends. You know, the guys that you could have gotten last year for cheap. Dallas Goedert, Jonnu Smith, George Fant, Mike Gesicki is one of those guys. And my favorite upside tight end to trade for right now, Irv Smith Jr., the prototypical tight end out of Alabama. I love everything about what he has going on. He runs a 4.63. He's 6'2", 242 pounds. He has that good size for a move tight end that can play in the slot, catch passes, and he's best comparable to Eric Ebron. Say what you want about Eric Ebron and him kind of being a bust, but he is that prototypical tight end. Irv Smith, remember, he's a second-round pick, great size, great speed, and he's unstartable right now. This is not a player that anybody on a contending team wants. If they can flip a Irv Smith into a Rob Gronkowski, I'm probably Irv Smith in like a second or a third for Rob Gronkowski, but that deal can get done pretty easily. Now, like I said, he's a tight end 37 right now in points per game with only 15 catches for 182 receiving yards, but this is a guy I really think is going to have that Jonnu Smith type career arc. Jonnu Smith, he's 6'3", he only had 20 receptions in his second year in a run-first offense, very similar to the Vikings offense. I've said numerous times now, this Vikings offense, super similar to the Titans offense of the previous years. You have Irv Smith, who's like a breakout like Jonnu Smith. Then you have Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown. Adam Thielen and Corey Davis is the one spot where I can't make that comparison go any farther, but I think that's why we're going to see Justin Jefferson go crazy this year. Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill have a very similar like skill set of like being like a game manager that can pop off from time to time. It's a very similar offense, and I think they operate in similar ways. That's why I really like a lot of these Viking pieces long term. As I said, Irv Smith is on the same pace as Jonnu, and he's probably even doing better in his second year. He's shown enough flashes to be worth it in Dynasty. He played well in weeks 5, 6, and 9, and it's super promising because he had 2 top 15 finishes and a top 5 finish. He's shown that when he's given the volume, he can ball out. He's had 2 games with over 50 receiving yards. He's had a game with 2 passing touchdowns or receiving touchdowns. There's been enough flashes for me to say that Irv Smith is the real deal. I think that he'll be a top 12 tight end at a certain point in his career once Kyle Rudolph kind of falls to the wayside after the Vikings throw a little bit more. There's a lot that can go in Irv Smith's direction, and you can buy him for pretty dirt cheap right now. This last one, tough to say, man. It's got the mini violin. It's just very sad, man. DJ Moore, it feels like everything's trending down for DJ Moore. He's wide receiver 28 in points per game. He's now hurt. He's going into a bye week in week 14. And this is where we got to pounce, boys. DJ Moore, we have to believe in the prospect profile. We have to believe in the player that we've seen in these first 3 years. I know that he didn't pan out this year. I had him as like my wide receiver 8 coming into the season. I thought this was going to be breakout DJ Moore season. But Teddy Bridgewater comes in there. Robbie Anderson comes in there.
You what?
Who knows? Robbie Anderson, I did not expect him to do what he's been doing this year. He's looked great. Curtis Samuel's looked great in spots. And even when Christian McCaffrey wasn't there, McCaffrey not being there opens targets up for DJ Moore, especially because he's going to be in and around that line of scrimmage at times. But it hasn't manifested this year, and I think that's why we're going to be able to get DJ Moore at a discount, because these teams are in must-win spots. DJ Moore, he's not only on bye, but he's hurt. Who knows if he's going to be here for the fantasy playoffs? I think he will be, but there's all this uncertainty around DJ Moore. He's been a letdown this season, and that's why I think that you can get him for cheap. And for me, I'm staying 10 toes down on DJ Moore, fellas. This is a guy who has a top 10 wide receiver in Dynasty still to this day. And remember, this is Dynasty. We got these guys for life. Progress isn't linear. You're not going to see a guy just keep on progressing up and up and up. If you look at college stats from year over year, even more than in the NFL, when we break down these prospects, there's a lot of times where they break out their freshman year and then sophomore year's a down year and then they come back out junior year and they look sick. There's many times where players will have down years, and we can't just expect it to be like Madden. It's not Madden where your guy's going to go from an 85 to an 87 to a 91 to that superstar X factor that we all want. It's just not how it works in real life. Especially when you see it with Juju Smith. Juju Smith-Schuster. He comes out his first year, looks good, comes out his second year, balls the fuck out. And now these past 2 years have been shaky, but he's still like a top 24 wide receiver. And he's been on that downturn. But I think DJ Moore is going to have a similar trajectory, but I think he's going to be on the upturn because I believe in him as a prospect. I believe in what they're doing in Carolina. And it's kind of different with Juju because there's so much talent around him. And not only that, but he's kind of voiced the idea that he wants to leave at some point. I think he's going to leave after this season. DJ Moore, he's young. He's only 23. He's the same age as DK Metcalf, AJ Brown. He's younger than Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson. Like I said, down years happen, but I love this guy's outlook for the next 5 years as a top 10 wide receiver over that time. He looks the part. It's just been a question of receptions and touchdowns in 2020. He leads the league in drops. He still has a 22% target share and is 6th in receiving yards with 924. So those last 2 numbers, super solid. Him leading the league in drops, I will never look at drops and be scared of it. It happens. Year over year, there's receivers where they just have bad drops. It happens for a year or so, and then they figure it out. DK Metcalf, he still even has drops to this day. It's just a matter of variance, him working on in the offseason. It's not, especially when they're young, it's really not a big concern for me when a guy has drops early in his career. And he's even been a little bit more solid than I think people are giving him credit for this year. He's finished inside the top 24 wide receivers or better 6 out of 12 times this year. He's top 5 in deep targets and air yards. He's being used as that deep threat. That's also not really his natural playing position. I think that once he gets used in his actual playing position, where I think I'd rather have him in the slot or at least in more of a X like flanker role where he comes in, gets that intermediate run, gets the little bubble screens. That's how you use DJ Moore. He's a yak monster. He's still fine with the yards after the catch. He still has, I think he's top 2 in yards per reception right now with 18.1. The drops are going to get better and the volume will come later on in his career. This guy I still believe in. And when you're a rebuilding team and you don't need him to produce right this second, he's a great wide receiver 2 to have for next season and a cornerstone in Dynasty, especially when you factor in the idea that you're going to have Teddy Bridgewater either in his second year in that offense, or you're going to have a guy like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance come in there and really elevate his stock. If you made it this far, man, I appreciate it. Make sure you go down below and subscribe. Leave a like and comment. Also, down in the description down below, we're going to have a Discord link. I'm going to have a group chat in there because I want to let you guys know when I'm going live, because I'm going to start live streaming every Monday. every Friday or Saturday, and then possibly on Sundays for a little set my lineup with you guys. I'll show you guys my teams. We'll run through that. And then the Friday, Saturday one, we'll break down a Thursday game. I'll answer any trade questions you have, any start-sit questions you have. And in that Discord, we can also talk about Dynasty trades, start-sits, and we're going to even have a little section for college basketball, NBA basketball, because on this channel I don't cover just fantasy football. I cover real life football, basketball, college basketball. Right now we got the Champions Classic going on. I took time out of my day to sit down here, record this video for you guys. I love this community. I love making content for you guys. You can't find me in the comments down below. You can always find me on Twitter at @RonStewart_ in my DMs. Do not be sus about sliding in my DMs. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hey, yo, y'all can't stand right here. In his right hand was your man's worst nightmare. Loud enough to burst his right eardrum close range. The game is not only dangerous, but it's most strange. I sell rhymes like dimes. The one who mostly keep cash, but brag about the broker times. Joker rhymes like the issue just happy to see me trick. Classical slapstick rappers need chapstick.